Hello, I'm Tom Meeks, and this is 3D Design for Fun and Life, featuring Moment of Inspiration, using the uniquely easy Noun and Verb method. This session is Setting Options. For clarity, we recommend that the Moment of Inspiration options be set to match those used to create this series. At any time in the future, the options can easily be reset to the default or changed to reflect your own favorite working environment. In this courseware, we use millimeters as our unit of measure. Why millimeters? Inch measurements can be expressed in either fractions or decimals, leading to confusion. Millimeter measurements are always expressed as decimals. Millimeters may be new to you, but let me put your mind to rest. In a decade of teaching Moment of Inspiration, not a single student failed to embrace using millimeters as our unit of measure. It quickly feels natural. And Moment of Inspiration permits us to enter formulas as values. 1 inch equals 25.4 millimeters. We demonstrate using formulas to make these conversions early in this course. A great tool to accompany these sessions is a low-cost digital caliper, like this one available online for under $10. It measures both inches and millimeters. Now, let's set our Moment of Inspiration options. This is the default Moment of Inspiration version 4 user interface. Before we begin using Moment of Inspiration, it will help us to customize it to a uniform standard for this course. Customizing Moment of Inspiration begins by clicking on the Options button at the bottom right of the screen. When we click on this button, the Options dialog pops up. The Options dialog for version 4 has 7 tabs. We will make changes in 3 of these tabs. There are also 2 buttons on this dialog. Clicking on the Restore Defaults button returns all settings to the default values. So that we're all starting at the same place, click on the Restore Defaults button now.
Please note, we are not asking viewers to change the UI size at this time. We typically work with the UI setting at the default value. But, for this course, we are changing the UI size value to the highest setting to help make reading items on the screen easier.
The Close button saves our changes and closes the Options dialog. For now, we will begin our customization by selecting the General tab. Select the General tab now. There's only one option, Unit System, on the General tab that we will need to change from the default value to millimeters.
For the purposes of this class, we want the unit system to be millimeters. All measurements will be specified in millimeters for the entire series of classes. Click on the drop-down box to the right of Unit System and select millimeters from the available choices.
We're now ready to set the View options. Click on the View tab. For now, the only value we will change in the View tab is the background color.
To set the background color, click on the color sample to the right of the background color label. A color dialog will pop up. We will enter a red value of 245, a green value of 245, and a blue value of 245, and select OK.
We are now ready to set the grid options. Click on the Grid tab. We want to set or change a number of options on the Grid tab. Show Grid. This option, when checked, displays a grid on the working surfaces.
Make sure that Show Grid is checked.
Show Grid Axes. This option, when checked, displays the X-axis and the Y-axis in bold.
Make sure that Show Grid Axis is checked.
Show Grid Z-axis in 3D view. This option is new with version 4. When checked, it displays the Z-axis in the 3D view.
Make sure that Show Grid Z-axis is checked.
Grid size. We will leave the grid size at the default value of 1. Snap size. When Grid Snap is on, Moment of Inspiration tries to snap the cursor position to the closest specified snap point on the grid. Using the 0.2 millimeter setting allows us to have 5 snap points for each millimeter. This allows us to have greater precision as we draw objects.
Change the snap size value to 0.2.
Grid sections. We will leave the grid sections at the default value of 150. Accented lines every. Accented lines help us count the measurement units in groups. The default is 5. But for the purpose of this class, we will be using 10, which means each accented line will be 10 millimeters from the previous and next accented lines.
Change the accented lines every value to 10.
This will make it a lot easier to size objects using the mouse. X-axis color.
To set the X-axis color, click on the color sample to the right of the X-axis color label. A color dialog will pop up. We will enter a red value of 0, a green value of 0, and a blue value of 255. And select OK.
The Y-axis color.
To set the Y-axis color, click on the color sample to the right of the Y-axis color label. A color dialog will pop up. We will enter a red value of 255, a green value of 0, and a blue value of 0. And select OK.
Z-axis color. The Z-axis color option was new to version 4.
To set the Z-axis color, click on the color sample to the right of the Z-axis color label. A color dialog will pop up. We will enter a red value of 0, a green value of 150, and a blue value of 0. And select OK.
Grid lines color. In our setup, grid lines represent each millimeter.
To change the color of the grid lines, click on the color sample inside the grid lines box. A color dialog will pop up. We will enter a red value of 180, a green value of 180, and a blue value of 180. And select OK.
The grid line style.
Just under the grid lines color is a drop-down control that lets us choose the style of the grid lines. While the default style of dashed is OK. We'll change this option to dotted.
Accented grid lines color. Accented grid lines help us to visualize our units of measure in groups. It helps if the accented lines are dark enough from the other lines on the screen to clearly stand out without being so dark that they obscure drawn lines.
To change the color of the accented lines, click on the color sample inside the accented grid lines box. A color dialog will pop up. We will enter a red value of 130, a green value of 130, and a blue value of 130. And select OK.
Customizing a moment of inspiration is now complete. Save the change values and close the options dialog by clicking on the Close button. That's all there is to it. Now we can move on to using moment of inspiration.